Okay, welcome back everybody, and delighted, we're going to be very hungry now after this session. Delighted to have Dr. Katie O'Dwyer and Ulrich Hosche with us today. And Ulrich and Katie have been doing amazing work over the last year. They've been working on a project that is supported by the National Forum, SATL funding, the local funding that we have here in the Teaching and Learning Office, and really innovative work, and we're going to hear about that. And I know they've got some props here to demonstrate all this exciting work they've been looking at over the last year. So handing over to Katie and to Ulrich. Thank you.
Thanks, Corinne. As Corinne said, my name is Ulrich Hosche. I'm a lecturer in the Culinary Arts Department.
And I'm Katie O'Dwyer, a lecturer in the School of Science and Computing, teaching on the Applied Freshwater and Marine Biology programme. So today we're going to talk to you a bit about a project that we've designed called Catch Your Lobster and Eat It, and we'll be bringing together the aquatic science and the culinary arts parts of our interests. So I suppose a bit of background about how we got together and why we're working on this project. So it started out with myself and Ulrich as digital champions working on that programme, which had started pre-COVID, when we were interested in digital education anyway, and then suddenly got catapulted into it much faster. But through our work on the digital teaching and learning module, we were kind of providing each other peer support and getting more familiar with the areas that each of us were working in and how we wanted to link in digital education into our own teaching and learning as well. So that's kind of what brought about the project, and we'll talk shortly about the ideas for the project as well. So Ulrich.
Yeah. The available digital tools these days really transforming the education landscape very quickly, and this reflected in a substantial increase in online courses being available. The use of the new digital tools enables us to kind of better engage students, make stuff more interactive, and virtual, augmented, and immersive reality allows us to basically for the students to self-navigate these environments, very close related to Minecraft then as well. And it fosters kind of critical thinking because those students have to move in this environment. Additionally, the resources that we want to create through our project, we hope to get a greater reach than with a normal classroom and get easier access for everybody to the resources. And on the last point then, enabling the learning experience, I pass you back to Katie.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, the COVID pandemic, we had started this in advance of that, but then that got all of us suddenly thinking about how we were going to move more into the digital education space and be prepared to deliver teaching and learning throughout the remote experiences that we all had to deal with. So we were working through this ourselves in our own teaching and as digital champions on the Digital Champions programme as well. And I suppose one of the things that became clear for everybody is the difficulty or the challenge in providing knowledge or experience of practical experiences to students remotely. And that's kind of where we started thinking about the ideas of what we could do and what we would develop as part of the project that we wanted to work on. And then we didn't want it to just be something that was interesting because it was needed for remote access. We wanted it to be useful beyond that as well. So we wanted to increase participation and access generally and provide unique opportunities that wouldn't be available to students on our courses otherwise. And we did this then through looking at how we could bring in immersive digital technology to do that. So for example, on the images you can see like a lobster boat going out fishing. So bringing a large cohort of students out on a trip like this to see how that happens isn't going to be practical. So it's bringing them a unique experience that they wouldn't get otherwise on their normal on-site delivery of the courses either. And then the same in the culinary arts side, it was, it's a high commodity product or an expensive product, the lobsters. So experiences of designing a whole variety of different dishes using the lobsters was going to be limited as well. So I'll pass back.
Perfect. We created a short little video that kind of captures the aim of the project, and we're just going to show that now.
I'm Katie O'Dwyer and I'm a lecturer in aquatic science at GMIT's School of Science and Computing.
I'm Ulrich Höche and I'm a lecturer in culinary arts at GMIT's Galway International Hotel School.
Together we are designing virtual learning experiences which will provide our students with an authentic, remote, practical experience.
We will engage students through enabling them to self-navigate and make their own decisions within the virtual environment.
Valuable learning opportunities will be embedded within these immersive media.
In an inclusive approach, we also aim to develop a shorter taster version for second-level students.
We plan to share our design process widely to highlight the digital solutions available for authentic and enjoyable remote learning. We are looking forward to this digital learning journey and the many adventures we are sure to have along the way.
Okay, perfect, thanks. So that was introducing kind of the main aim of the project, which is to create a virtual experience, not unlike what we were shown earlier for Minecraft, but in a kind of a different environment, of course. So we've talked a little bit about identifying the opportunities. So when we were developing the project, we had these different kind of stages that we see ourselves having worked through. So identifying the opportunity to work together on this project, then developing the pipeline, which involved kind of the resources that we were going to need, the timeline that was involved, and that got heavily disrupted because we wanted a lot of new fancy technology which wasn't available kind of on demand due to the shortages that were experienced during the various lockdowns and the supply chain disruption and everything. So everything did arrive just this January. So we continued in the meantime working on preparing the storyboards so that we could be ready. And now that we have the equipment, the main task is to collect the footage that we need for the final product. And then the editing will take place with an external provider whose the normal work is creating virtual learning experiences. So today we're going to talk more about preparing the storyboard. So for this, what we did is we used the backward design approach. So we first needed to find out what was it that we wanted students to learn as they went through the experience, what were the kind of key learning opportunities on the shared topic of catching your lobster and eating it that we were going to bring for aquatic science students and for culinary arts students. Following that, we decided how would we assess these learning pieces for the students. And then once we had the key learning and the assessment identified, we moved on to figure out our course structure, our course content, and then that led us to figure out what we needed in terms of filming requirements to develop the overall virtual experience in the end.
Okay, for the culinary arts students, in relation to the learning, key learnings that will take place in the experience is we're going to concentrate on the sustainability of the lobster so that students are aware when they see a lobster at what stage of the development of the lobster, at what size is it good for culinary use, so that we don't use specimens that are too young or too small. The other things then are the storage of it, improving the quality to reduce the stress of the live animal before it's being used for culinary use, and maximizing the ingredient as in using all the parts of the lobster so we get maximum use out of each individual part, from the shell to the claw to all the other parts.
And then on the aquatic science side, it was for students to understand more about lobsters in general. So what's the biology and ecology of lobsters? Also, what are the fishing methods used to catch lobsters, comparing maybe traditional and modern fishing techniques for lobsters, and also then really focusing in on sustainability measures. So because lobsters are really long-lived species and the mature large females contribute a lot to the next generations of the populations, they need protection measures in place, and that was something that we wanted to bring out in the learning resource as well. So you can see here that there are obvious links in certain parts of the learning resource which will apply to both aquatic science science and culinary arts students. And then there are other parts where we'll branch out and focus more on the material for the science students or the material for the culinary arts students, depending. So it'll have kind of decision-making abilities within the virtual learning environment. So once we had the key learning identified, then, as we mentioned, we moved on to the assessment. So what we're looking at for aquatic science is 2 interactive quizzes. So these will be embedded in the virtual learning experiences. So as students navigate around the environment, they will click on parts of an image, and that will prompt them to answer questions on that, and they'll be scored on that in the end. So we'll do that for the lobster, and again on the kind of fishing topics as well. And then the last part is a Padlet, which again will be navigated to by students through the learning environment, and they'll need to provide information about 100 to 200 words on sustainability measures. And that Padlet allows for a bit of collaboration, because the students can navigate through this on their own without interacting with anybody. But when they get to that Padlet piece, they'll see what other students have added, and it'll create a kind of a community part to it as well.
On the culinary side, then again, 2 parts as well. Again, for the assessment, an interactive quiz in relation to the sustainability, the quality, and the storage. And then a Padlet to kind of get them a little bit innovative thinking on how to use the different parts, so they kind of contribute their own recipe to the Padlet on the uses of different parts of the lobster. And as Katie said, all this will be embedded in the experience, so they navigate through it themselves. Then just quick, this is a kind of a screenshot of our first whiteboard brainstorm, just how we came about, and the course structure. So we had the boat in mind always, and the sea, and GMIT, which now is ATU, to kind of create all the footage. On to that then, we went looking at the course content, and we covered that kind of already, kind of anatomy, quality for the culinary part, and the cooking head to tail, as I call it. We often with pork, it's referred to this. We want to do the same with the lobster, and then
Katie. And then the same for the catch your lobster. So on the top row, so this is where we kind of did our initial brainstorming in the structure and the content. So you can see here, I had outlined I wanted to cover the natural habitat. So it's thinking of like how the students will journey through the virtual environment. So they'll first be looking at kind of where a lobster would be found in the environment, and then how the lobster would be fished. The different methods that are used for that and how they're sustainable or not, and then aspects of the lobster that would influence whether we're fishing them sustainably or not as well. So from that we moved on then. Once we had kind of identified that content and that structure, we were able to figure out exactly what filming requirements we needed, and then working with the VR company, they're able to tell us exactly what descriptions they need of scenes, like what footage because we are responsible for getting the footage and sending it to them, and they can only work with what we give them. So we needed to be really explicit about how we did that. So for example, if I take the lobster habitat there, the scenes that were identified that we needed was like a coastal landscape scene, so that you're being brought to the environment where you would find the lobster, underwater scenes, and then a scene underwater with the lobster itself in its environment. Moving on to the lobster fishing, then we wanted to have a boat moored so that you're again going on the entire journey as partaking in it. The boat driving out to the area where you're going to fish for the lobster, the various equipment that's being used, so the pots and the ropes, and then actually deploying that equipment, collecting the equipment, and hopefully having a lobster in the pot at the end of it. And that's just the first pot it goes into. So then moving on to the culinary arts part, I'll pass.
Culinary arts, again, we broke it down then into the different scenes of the different elements. One thing that we had to concentrate is also the expertise that we need outside expertise, as in we have the VR company, but we also need help with filming, with the lobster pots, going out on the boat, having somebody that's bringing us out and somebody that knows the lobster pots or works with them. And one additional element then that we also thought about is the whole narration of the scenes. Okay, so to make sure that we include all the learning outcomes in the narration, so that if we have live narration, that also maybe some additional narration needs to be done afterwards to make sure that the learning outcomes are covered, that we're covering in the quiz. Now, on to the actual filming of the scenes. Now, we got some fabulous equipment here, and one thing that I had to do to get used to it is trying out some of the elements. And we have a lovely 360 small camera here, which is an Insta360 One X2. I tried it out a good bit now, and I used it. For example, just to kind of get used to it, I used it at a field trip to a beekeeper, so we were kind of able to get up close and personal with the bees and move around the bees, and also show the students as they kind of approach the beehive. We used it in the kitchen, for example, for a time lapse, which I could move around as well on a big dinner that we did. So we had a little time lapse capture. And the part now that's really relevant to us is we used it in a tank here in GMIT or in ETU now with the lobster, and we used the direct, what is it called? Deep tracking feature, Deep tracking feature that allowed us then basically, I had the camera in the tank, but the deep tracking feature that you use in processing afterwards allowed us to concentrate the camera on the lobster, because the camera is 360 footage. So I just say it's deep track the lobster, and the footage is just concentrating on the lobster. Okay. Then the other scenes that are actually part of the project then is the main scene is going to be in a fishmongers, and from the fishmongers we're going to use the Insta360 Pro, which is basically the virtual environment that you navigate from then. And with the Insta360 Pro in the fishmongers, then you can access, you go out to the sea, or you go to the quality points, or you go to the lab. And then the other piece of camera that we got is a Canon 90D, which allows us to record in 4K as well. And this camera is going to be really good for actually the culinary footage. What we have a rack that we mounted on, and we do a stop motion with ingredients and the whole cooking process of the lobster then and the different elements. As you said, we collaborate with a VR company to put it all together and to incorporate assessment and to then deliver the learning resources as part of the whole experience.
Great. And I suppose we should say as well, in showing the equipment, the idea is that like we have the equipment got for this project, but hopefully it can be used for a lot of other projects as well. So anybody that sees the uses for it in their work as well is welcome to use it. So with that, we'd like to acknowledge a number of individuals and organisations. So thanks a lot to Karina, Ian and Jessica, who have supported us this far, to all the team that have helped today to make this possible. Also then to Digital Aid, the SATL funding that Karina mentioned from the National Forum and Higher Education Authority. And then also we've been working a lot with Galway Bay Seafoods, the Galway Atlantic Area and Cyan Planet, which is the VR company, just in the collaboration developing the project so far, and we're really excited to get it to the next stage now. And then finally, we just want to thank you all today for your attention and leave you with this short video. We're happy to take any questions that anyone might have as well. So over to you.
Will you watch the video first?
You can ask why
I think it can just run. Yeah, it's just images. Yeah.
And it's amazing what you've done. It's fabulous. It's such a brilliant collaboration between science and culinary arts. Now I know there's some other projects that might happen between the two schools, but this is so authentic, and to think that your learners in the culinary arts programs are going to benefit so much, and equally the science, marine science students. Have you had any feedback from students so far, or have they had a look at what you're doing and get their insights? Or
there was a few students with us today that we were looking at the lobster in the lab, because that was actually part of another project, so we had the opportunity to practice our acquiring footage skills. And the students were really interested in it. We haven't actually fully got feedback from students on it yet, other than that, just because we weren't kind of ready yet, I don't think. But yeah, from chatting to them about what we're planning to do, they're really keen on it as well. I don't know if you had any students in the kitchen with you when you were practicing with it, is it? No. Okay, yeah.
It'd be good to
but
get their feedback.
As well that yeah, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
One of our main ideas as well is also that we kind of that we document the process, what we are doing, how we use the equipment, so that kind of people that go to use it going forward can benefit from, this is what this is ideal for.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you're saying that, Ulrich, because one of the things, remember we talked about in the early days with this initiative, we said, could this be a model that, or a process that you put in place that could be replicated for other disciplines? So other disciplines could start thinking about the VR opportunities. Do you think it's transferable, what you've done so far, if we could get more people thinking of creating kind of a work group around, or kind of an innovator group around who would like to engage in this and other disciplines?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think the key for us was that it was something that we wouldn't be able to do anyway. So rather than just thinking of a digital education experience, like for the sake of it, this is something that we wouldn't be able to do with students on site or remotely or anything otherwise. So if it's kind of something value added or whatever, then I think people will have lots of ideas.
You know, there's stuff that might be accessible for students, but really can bring that into the classroom.
I wonder, could we expand the group? I'm just thinking of the next opportunity for SATL funding and that, and we might we'll chat about that and see, maybe expand your group to bring in 3 more disciplines, and maybe look at another, just when you mentioned the beekeeping, and there's so many possibilities, isn't there? Yeah, and I'm just thinking of, I'm just thinking of the sustainability development goals, and there's a huge emphasis now on how we're weaving that into our curriculum. And there could be opportunities through these VR experiences to just make it more real and experiential for the students. Yeah,
we might to the Minecraft, like, you know, the students kind of learn within the environment without having necessarily like lecturers there to kind of guide and maybe kind of, but in this case, the students themselves develop.
Yeah, there might be synergies with the teams, definitely. Yeah, so we must look at that. How have you found the equipment?
Fantastic.
Okay.
Amazing.
Is it? Yeah. Okay, so that's doing the job.
And it's really, like, we're already using it on a few other projects as well, so it's
brilliant. Yeah. That's great. Is there any questions online, or is there anybody in the room that wants to ask a question?
Just a great example of how technology can create links across disciplines. So just praise going on the chat.
Yeah, brilliant. I see Ellen from Sligo has come in, a great example of the you said. So brilliant, well done. I'm really excited about the next phase and seeing the end product, but you've planned it out so well, just the assessment strategy and just all the links to the learning resource, and dying to see the footage.
Yeah, it's the footage bit now.
I'm dying to see, you could be TG Carr or RG might be looking for.
There's one more questions, sorry, Mark.
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, no worries.
Great, absolutely superb. I echo all of Karina's comments there as well. And what I was actually going to say, what you just said there towards the end, mirroring or coming up with some form of replication of what Etain done, bringing the students involved and just say, go, knock yourself out, get it sorted. Brilliant suggestion. But what I'd add to it as well is, when we go for funding like this, the National Forum funding, which is absolutely superb, one of the challenges we have is highlighting the impact that it's made. And you sort of said, yes, we've done it in this course and we had this collaboration between it, but it's so much more than that. And you mentioned it there just at the end, how we're now using it in other subjects or in other areas that we didn't originally intend to do. That's impact beyond the lifetime of funding, and that's superb to highlight. So please highlight it.
No, really good point. And people forget that, Mark.
They do, yeah.
There's so much knock-on effects as a result of it's small seed funding you've received, but it's hugely impactful.
Impactful on you, but also impactful on your colleagues. Where you turn around and say, well, can you try out this new deadly 360 camera?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Say, like, with the equipment you have, like, you could essentially create a virtual environment of any physical space.
And there's functionality in Moodle in H5P to allow you to embed 360 video right inside it. So no matter what your experiment is, no matter what your area is,
I think it's easy then to put the hotspots on it. You know what I mean? When you interact the students. There's loads of potential for it.
I think our learning technologists team are going to be all over that. Now they know it. Okay. That's brilliant. Thanks a million, Ulrich. And thank you.